Alright, I'm standing here in my front yard in Maryland. It's December 8th or 9th today, just before dusk, in the mid upper 30s. I'm standing here right by my front yard where in the spring I started this pear tree guild. So I have 3 semi-dwarf European pears, and I intended for this to look finished by now, by the winter time, actually even by summer. But with some other projects in the spring and summer, never got back to it. So the original plan was just to plant these trees, which at least that part got done, and just pile a super deep wood chip here, maybe to a depth of 15 to 18 inches, and just smother everything around, and then come back later and kind of finish out the guild system. But that didn't happen, and now I actually don't have any wood chips. But what I do have is a ton of these leaf bags that I can use as sheet mulch. So what I'll be doing off camera mostly is I'm kind of taking this wood chip where it is and bringing it back towards the middle, because each kind of piece of this is only going to get a couple inches of wood chip on top of that cardboard sheet mulch. And anyway, you get the idea. I'll kind of bring that into the center, sheet mulch, and then kind of bring the wood chips back out on top of it. So this guild will ultimately be these 3 pears, and where the camera is approximately south. So on the north end of this, there'll be a kind of row of hazelnuts on about 6-foot spacing, all the way around from the north to the west side. And then from west to south and up towards where the camera is will be comfrey, kind of all along that edge. And if you could look over there for a second, right on the edge of this, so the comfrey will come, you know, approximately up to here or so. This is my pathway for my truck. When I need to get to the backyard over there, I kind of have this carved out, so I won't be planting anything there. So it's kind of a good edge for this anyway. Let's see, in here there'll be a number of things. I'll use some of this as space for various annuals, just kind of in the spring, kind of clear aside bits of wood chip. Plant a transplant down in there, put a handful or 2 of compost in, and I've had really good success growing things that way as the space transitions. You can see the soil here, it's mostly clay, but this stuff has only had the wood chip on it for maybe, I don't know, 3-4 months, but the grass is mostly gone and dead. I feel a few roots that are alive and see a couple little living things, but pretty good already. Just to show back here with the hazelnuts. So I just have a few bare root trees soaking in water. I got all these from the state nursery program in the spring. They were not even $1 a piece, the bulk discount. So I'd intended to get all these in the ground again in the spring. Didn't happen. So luckily I healed them in. I'll show that on another little clip. And they were able to live all summer in a sheltered spot, just with some compost and occasional water. And planting these is not too bad. You know, I kind of put little pieces of trash bamboo where I was going to plant them. So I just kind of scraped the topsoil up with this. Then kind of come down in. Get a hole, feel a rock down there, that's all right. Just leave that. And I'll pull one of these that's a little smaller so I don't have to clip the root system or dig a bigger hole. Yeah, let's see, this guy should work. You see, not too terribly big of a root system. but it's certainly enough for that size of tree. And it's definitely alive. Got some living buds on there. Maybe. Yeah, I see a few. So just kind of dig this down, and I want the root system basically just at or above where the original soil level was. And I'll take and get as much loose stuff as I can, just roughly down around. I'll save these plants for on top. Kind of press it in. Then the bigger stuff, just a quick little press, and then just I don't know, 2 handfuls of mostly finished compost on top. Stomp it in. Then I'll come over here and grab one of these leaf bags. Grab a nice wet one, make it easier for the video, and just kind of tear it down. Put it around the tree, and ultimately I don't want this paper touching the bark of the tree, just like that or so. And then just to hold this bag in place, I won't finish this because I want to overlap the bags. But few shovels of wood chip. Again, move that mulch a little bit up off of it. Good enough. And then just a touch of water. It's gonna rain tomorrow, so that'll be fine. And that's really it. I'll carry on with this, get these other 5 or 6 planted before dark, so I don't have to be out here with a headlamp on. And maybe I'll show an update on how all this made it through the winter in the spring, maybe April or May. I was mentioning I ordered a bunch of trees from the state nursery program in the spring and overestimated how much time I'd have to plant them. So in an effort to save as many as I could, I'm just right up against the house here on the north side. I dug a trench, maybe, I don't know, 6 feet long, 1.5 to 2 feet wide, and just kind of healed all the plants in. And you see there's some Douglas firs. I lost a bunch of those. They did not like this at all. Got some American persimmon there, I believe, which mostly actually made it through this. Hazelnuts, might be 50 or more there still. And then a bunch of white oaks as well. And believe it or not, all these, other than the Douglas firs, they actually did pretty well in here. So I pretty much just laid them in bundles in this trench. Backfilled the trench with some very rich, almost finished compost, very kind of woody from a bunch of duck bedding, pine chip duck bedding. And yeah, they made it through most of the summer, just with some occasional water and not too much else. And now when I'm kind of going down and trying to pull a few of the hazels out to plant, and it's very clear that their root systems actually did some growing in here. They're kind of tangled together and kind of a pain to rip up. So I've waited until they went entirely dormant. That way, if I break any of the roots off by just kind of lazily pulling them up, they should be okay. And when they wake up in the spring, they can hopefully carry on growing in a more permanent location. This is absolutely not going to work for any more than the season. I mean, I'm surprised this even worked to begin with. So anyway, this is the planting stock for the hazels, persimmon, white oak, and those few Douglas firs that made it. And here's more of a close-up of a few of those hazelnuts that I want to get in the ground. I'm going to get down in on them. And you can see, hopefully you can see, nice healthy buds there, sitting nice and dormant. And they're just sitting in a bucket of water from an old rain barrel right there. Root systems look pretty good. I'll just kind of soak them in this water for until I need them. Maybe anywhere from, maybe an hour to up to a day or so. I have forgotten about trees in buckets of water for a few days. As long as they're sitting somewhere in the shade, sheltered, they seem to be okay for a few days just in water. But ideally get them planted, before the same time tomorrow.